Everything is fine here on Detention Blog AA23, a Star Wars podcast. Holy cow, fumbling over my words already when I started. I just finished watching part 7 of the Ahsoka show for my second time now. This is actually the second time I watched it, and it's just getting me so super hyped, super excited that I'm fumbling over my words. And on top of that, other exciting news that I'll get into here in a second. But again, we are Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Mike, here to talk some more Star Wars, some more Ahsoka. We're going to have spoilers, so I'm just going to throw that spoiler tag right here, right now. If you haven't watched part 7, Dreams and Madness of the Ahsoka show, put us on pause, go watch it, and then come back and listen to what I have to say about it. I say I have to say because I'm the only one here today, which leads me to that exciting news that I just mentioned a bit ago. Congratulations to Dustin and his wife Callie and son Bennet. Today they welcomed, I should say today, September 27th of 2023, they welcomed in a healthy baby daughter, Rayna Adeline DeFranco. Hold on, I might have wrote that down wrong. I gotta just confirm this. Yeah, I wrote it down wrong. Rayna Adeline DeFranco. Welcome to our wonderful world, Rayna. She was born 6 pounds, 14 ounces, 19 inches long. Mom and baby are doing well. And of course, Dustin is super stoked. And I'm sure little Bennet is excited to have a little sister, a future Star Wars fan in the making. So shout out to Dustin and his family for welcoming in a new baby girl. So happy for you guys. That is obviously why he's not able to join today. Again, this just happened today. C-section, so it was planned for today. And you know, I should say we are live right now, and he's probably just in the hospital room, probably trying to sleep on that uncomfortable bed. So who knows? Maybe he's listening in right now. Maybe he saw the notification of a live broadcast going out. So I will keep an eye for a message to come through. But if you have any questions, comments, or anything, opinions, please share with us in the comments of our YouTube channel right now going live, those thoughts and opinions, and I will address them here. It'll be it's always helpful when I get that communication from all the fans when I'm just doing this by myself, because I don't like being the center of attention in the first place. So having to talk by myself just is kind of an uncomfortable setting for me, but I'll push through it because I love Star Wars and I love talking about Star Wars with all of you out there. So I will continue on. So Dustin, if you're listening to me, pipe in on your opinions. I know you texted me some of your opinions, and I will read through those here in a second when we get on to the Ahsoka show. I did just want to make another couple of comments. You know, we're very much major sports fans, all of us on DetBlock, and my Brewers, so Zach, Greg, and I are all Wisconsin sports fans through in and throughout. We've been able to recruit Dustin to become a Packer fan. Used to be a St. Louis Rams fan, and then not so much after they moved to LA. And since then, he's started following the Packers. His wife, Callie, is a Packers fan. So it only makes sense. And hey, we'll welcome anyone into the fanship at any time. All you listeners out there, come be a Green Bay Packer fan. But Dustin is a Cardinals fan. The rest of us are Brewers fans. And the Brewers, as of yesterday, with a Cubs loss, clinched the NL Central Division champions. Yeah, not the pennant. Pennant comes later. But yes, they were crowned champions of the National League Central the other day. It's the third time in 5 years that they've done this. And it's very exciting for Brewers fans because we've had so many long droughts of just not being successful. Before 2008, I think they only made the playoffs twice. And then they made the playoffs in 2008, 2011, which that was an exciting run to the NLCS, the championship series, which the Cardinals, Dustin's team, beat us. And then since 2018, we've made the playoffs every year but once. So things have been really getting exciting as Brewers fans, as Milwaukee sports fans with that. Excited to see how far they go. Hoping they make it to the World Series because they haven't won one yet. And I've never experienced the Brewers in the World Series because the only time they've been to the World Series was 1982 and I was born in 1986. So didn't make it. So yeah, that starts on Tuesday. The playoffs start. Go Brew Crew. The Milwaukee Bucks. I think they just got Damian Lillard. So that's exciting. And then Packers, Jordan Love has taken over the helm for the Green Bay Packers, and they are 2-1 in their season so far, tied for first in the NFC North with the Detroit Lions. And tomorrow they have the Thursday night football game against the Detroit Lions. So wasn't really expecting the season to start out this way. They had a huge comeback win last week after being down 17-0 going into the fourth quarter. And Love brought them all the way back to win 18-17. So again, a lot of exciting stuff going on in sports. I just had to put it out there. Sorry if you don't care, but it's exciting to us. And hey, speaking of sports, my Tuesday league for softball is now done. And my Thursday league, we have a game tomorrow on Thursday. If we win, we play next Thursday again. If we lose, we're done. It's playoffs time, so just depends on what happens. But that to say, potentially after this week, softball will be done, and that allows me to dedicate more time, one, to my brand new son of a little over 3 months, Jackson John Mudge. So looking forward to being able to spend more time with him and be able to I can see, I just can't talk today. Maybe it's because it's 11:30 at night. Who knows? But spend more time with my son, which will help take some of the load off more from my wife, Colleen, who's still on leave. That's not to say I'm not helping out, but when I'm gone Tuesday and Thursday evenings, it makes it a little harder for her. So now I can relieve her of those duties on Tuesday and Thursday. And spend more time with my family, and of course, spend more time with all of you. I'll be able to dedicate more of my time to trying to ensure we have weekly episodes and editing our content in a more timely fashion, because it's been really tough lately. And I still haven't. Well, I did edit last week's, and it's on our podcast channels and the live versions on YouTube, but the edited version's not on YouTube yet. So I still have a little catch up to do, but next couple of weeks, I should be fine, smooth sailing. So looking forward to all that. All right, now let's move on to what everyone's here to listen about. Ahsoka Part 7, Dreams and Madness. I will do kind of a review of it. I will talk through major points of it, as we usually do on our review episodes. I know we haven't done it for the recent episodes. Last week, Dustin and I kind of did a recap of the previous 3 episodes, plus talk about holistically the show from Dustin's point of view, because I think he was only able to join us for parts 1 and 2 and wasn't able to join for 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I will first start out. I will just read what Dustin texted me, because I was anxious to hear about what his opinion was from watching it. So I quote from Dustin. So I thought the episode was clunky and hokey. And again, let me spoiler tag again. If you haven't seen the show or this episode, pause, go watch it, and come back. Okay, you've been warned. So I thought the episode was clunky and hokey. Felt that there were very low stakes for the main characters as far as them being in danger. The little pods they were driving in looked goofy. And again, I didn't like Sabine avoiding discussing how she got there and Ezra just letting it go. If you recall last week, that was a major point that stuck to Dustin. Something like that, you just don't brush under the rug. Like, you talk about that. He goes on saying, I really disliked Ezra not taking his lightsaber, and he just seems to be weaker than he was in Rebels. I also think we don't have enough backstory on Baylan to believe he can best Ahsoka each time they encounter each other. Thrawn's performance is still great, and so is Baylan's, so that's a positive. The Empire feels like the rich kids that get everything, and Ahsoka and crew feel like the poor kids always using as siblings, beat up hand-me-downs. So some very almost harsh words there. But very authentic. That's how he feels, and hey, that's totally fine. That's what we're here for, and I'm sure he's not alone. My response to that was, yeah, I thought this episode was a little meh, probably the weakest of the 7 so far. I did like the opening scene showing the inner struggles and politics of the New Republic, essentially showing they haven't been on the same page and don't have clear direction on which way they want to govern or lead. Leia even had to lie about supporting Hera's mission through CPO. Balin's overall objective still interests me, and he had some great lines, like being impatient to fight leads to defeats, something along those lines. Very curious on his intention to separate from Shin and let her go on her own path. I don't know if it's so much as Balin being better than Ahsoka or more of Ahsoka being out of the fight for so long. Same could be said about Ezra. I think we just have to wait and get more context. The pod scene was a little clunky, which definitely seemed more like an animated Rebels scene trying to be brought to live action. I could see that being more of a cartoon than what we got was more for the younger audiences than us. I think that's what we have to remember. These are shows for all audiences, which is what I think separates Andor from all the others. That was for adults, which allowed for the realism. But I think it was more of a setup episode anyways, to set up for the season finale. I still think this show is fantastic and feels exactly like an extension of Rebels. And then Dustin responded, impatience for victory guarantees defeat. So just letting me know what that quote was. So yeah, that's just kind of a little teaser for what I'm about to get into. Well, maybe I shouldn't say teaser because we're just going to be doing more of a review. I will give, I guess, a real quick mention of my point around maybe the weakest of the 7 episodes. And it should be stated that when I say weakest, I don't mean bad. I just mean it wasn't as impactful. There wasn't as I shouldn't say much going on because there's a lot that took place in this episode. There was a lot going on, and it was very exciting and very a lot of fighting. So it's not to say boring or anything. It just I don't know how to put it. It just didn't have the impact as the others. It was still great. And I think what should also be stated is that there were some very key moments in this episode. So maybe it wasn't as impactful, but there was a lot of important information that was given to us. And it wasn't the most obvious information. It was more subtle. And it's really going to lead not necessarily the show, but certain characters in certain directions. And we will kind of touch on that a little bit. It's a fantastic show. I'm still excited to get to the season finale. I'm not going to use, I know you have to use the word to state what you're avoiding, but not going to use the word filler because that's not what this was. I use the word setup because that's more what it is. It's to prepare you, not just for the season finale, which comes out this upcoming Tuesday, but a setup for, like I mentioned, the past for certain characters. And it was also a very connecting episode to stuff outside of the Ahsoka show. So with that, let's just kind of dive in. And I mentioned this in the text. So again, this is part 7, Dreams and Madness. And the episode starts out in a New Republic Senator Council on Coruscant, where there's arguing for the need to follow rules and laws versus breaking orders of Hera pursuing the possibility of Thrawn and Imperial remnants. It was, there was even a call out to Gideon and the conflict on Mandalore that we see from the show The Mandalorian. So again, the connecting piece. So we know that there's all these different shows that are taking place, and there's this kind of, as we've mentioned many times, this Marvel Infinity War Endgame moment that's coming up at a certain point. And we're kind of connecting all those dots right now. And this is connecting the Mandalore show with the Ahsoka show. But I thought this was a very fascinating scene. Just really giving indication, one, to how non-efficient the ruling of the New Republic is. You know, they're so focused on doing what's good or the right thing versus following orders. And that's what the Empire or Imperials do really well. I mean, it might be more harsh and more like of a dictatorship, but there's a clear direction, there's clear objective, and you can get everyone, for the most part, everyone who believes in it to follow. The New Republic, they were a rebellion. They are used to almost resisting the law, resisting order, obviously for good reasons, for freedom to eliminate evil and tyranny and all that. But it's also an indication of how they might be a ruling party, and it's a little chaotic. Not everyone agrees, and almost harsh too. Senator Zino, who connects to the Resistance show, he's the one that's not really trusting in what Hera has to say and is really calling her out in the fact that she's not following these laws. And he even motions for Hera to be court-martialed for disobeying the direct order. And really cool moment here. I mean, I didn't see this coming. Love that it happened. Good old C-3PO walks in, sent by Senator Leia Organa. Awesome to have. I believe it was Anthony Daniels that voiced him again. It sure sounded like it. But who doesn't love a good C-3PO or R2-D2 sighting? So love that we got his cameo, and hey, it fits. So it makes sense. I didn't notice though, because so many times when you see him, something's up. Like he's got a red arm, or he's got a silver leg, or missing some kind of limb. I think he looked pretty good. I think he was all intact, but I might have to go back and check. Anyways, so C-3PO, or he was referred to as a mere droid by Senator Xina, or that's a hard name to pronounce, so apologize. And he wishes to present a data script which should resolve the issue with Hera. And Leia Organa personally sanctioned Hera's reconnaissance mission and asked for further issues to be directed directly to her, Leia, personally, as leader of the Defense Council. So trying to right the wrong here and come to the aid of Hera. And they've met before in Rebels, because that was when the Hammerheads, they stole the Hammerheads, and Leia came in and teamed up with Ezra, and I think Sabine was there, and I think Hera was there. Zeb was, I know that, and to pretend to steal her ships, but she was actually pawning them off to the rebels on purpose. Anyways, so they know of each other, and as a result of C-3PO bringing this information, Senator Xano is satisfied and the court is dismissed. And Mon Mothma is kind of leading this discussion or this debate, this meeting. And after it was dismissed, Mon Mothma approaches Hera and she's like, I don't believe that Leia actually sanctioned your mission. And then Hera responds back saying, she did eventually. So that tells me that when the mission happened, no, Leia did not actually sanction the mission. But after the fact, when Leia heard about it, then that's when she sanctioned it. So around the, back end type of a thing. So, and then Mon Mothma asks Hera about her confidence level in Thrawn's return. And then Hera is quoted, "Plan for the worst and hope for the best." In other words, she feels pretty confident that Thrawn is at least out there, and the possibility of him returning is probably fairly likely. All right, so then we cut to this title screen. Ahsoka, get the music, and then the title of the chapter of the part, again, Dreams and Madness. And then we jump to the Purrgil in hyperspace. So Ahsoka and Huyang are still on the ship inside the mouth of the Purrgil, and we see Ahsoka is saber training, and we get to see good old Anakin Skywalker again, portrayed by Hayden Christensen. So she's training with a hologram of Anakin Skywalker that he had recorded in the past. And in this, he's talking to Ahsoka about preparation specifically for battle and for fighting. And he says, "As your master, it is my responsibility to prepare you." He states he won't always be there for her, and she needs to be able to make it on her own, which is very much the case right here. She's on her own. But he says, "Don't be afraid. Trust your instincts." And then he finishes it with, "I know you can do this, Ahsoka." And at the end of it, he does his bow, obviously not live, or, it was a recording of him bowing. And I think out of respect, Ahsoka continues to bow to it, even though she knows he's not really there. So bowing right back. And then at that moment, Huyang walks in, and Ahsoka tells him that Anakin made about 20 recordings similar to this one, and that this one that was playing was his last one. So very meaningful for her, if that was kind of the last thing, last recording, last thing she can use, is still physically seen, well, not physically, but still seeing him and learning from him, was this one. And Huyang mentioned something along the lines of how thoughtful that was. And then Ahsoka says he was a good master. And he was. I mean, obviously we know his fate and turning to the dark side, but he really was a great master to Ahsoka. And he was the only one that had her back and was in her corner all the time, even when the Jedi Council and turned on her in the setup of her bombing, I'm putting air quotes, Jedi Temple. So obviously that wasn't the case. She got set up by spacing on her name. I know it. I don't know why I'm spacing on him, because it was one of the theories of who Marok was. It'll come to me in a second, but it was one of her fellow Padawans or Jedi in training while Ahsoka was training under Anakin Skywalker. Anyways, Huyang states to Ahsoka that the Purrgil are slowing down, which means they are getting close to their arrival. But he's not confident that they will be arriving in the correct location that they're intended to arrive. Like they're looking to arrive to find Sabine, potentially find Ezra, location of Thrawn, all that. But Huyang's like throwing out the possibilities. He's like, all right, so we're going to an unexplored area, a whole new galaxy with countless systems, countless galaxies, or countless systems. How are we to know that this is the right spot? But Ahsoka, I think, feels pretty confident. She still trusts in the situation that they're going to end up in the right place. And they exit out of hyperspace and immediately hear explosions outside, outside where the Purrgil are. And come to find out, they arrive in an Imperial minefield where these mines are just like bombarding the Purrgil. So they sense something either in motion or nearby, and they kind of attract to that source and then explode. And Ahsoka is like, we need to see what's going on and check this out. So they exit the whale's mouth, and sure enough, they're in this minefield, and they're flying through. The Purrgil are flying through. Ahsoka and Huyang and their spaceship are flying through. And then finally the Purrgil are like, enough of this. We're getting out of here. And they hyperspace away, just leaving Huyang and Ahsoka. And they continue towards the planet because Huyang tells them this at some point, as when we get closer to the planet, the minefield ends. And sure enough, it does. They clear the field. And then as soon as they clear the field, they see that hyperspace ring that Morgan and Balin and Shin went from the galaxy we know of to this new galaxy. It's that hyperspace big ring that looks like it's intended for a Star Destroyer, specifically Thrawn's. They see that in the distance and they're like, oh, we're in the right place. And then right away, there's these star fighters that approach them, and they start engaging. So to escape, they head towards a debris field to try and lose the fighters. And yeah, so man, talk about going from just training in hyperspace to holy crap, here's a minefield, we're being attacked, we need to flee, kind of hide. Kind of reminiscent of A New Hope 1 when they arrived to the Death Star. So I was kind of getting those feelings there. All right, so we cut to Thrawn's Star Destroyer. Thrawn is informed that he was correct with Ahsoka arriving with the Purrgil. And Thrawn learns Ahsoka's master was General Anakin Skywalker. And this is important. So I am kind of shocked that Thrawn didn't know this already. Thrawn and Anakin Skywalker have interacted in the past. If you've read the Thrawn trilogy books, not the Heir to the Empire trilogy and not the Ascendancy trilogy, but the other Thrawn trilogy. So Thrawn Alliances, and Thrawn I don't remember, I can't remember the third one, but those books. In the second one, Alliances, Anakin and Thrawn interact both as Anakin and as Darth Vader. That book kind of jumps back and forth in time as the story progresses. But all that to say, I'm just kind of surprised that he didn't know Ahsoka was Anakin's Padawan, but here we go. Now we do. And this really intrigues him, Thrawn, because again, he knows Anakin Skywalker and he knows his capabilities, and he's kind of assuming that Ahsoka will be very similar to Anakin, kind of unpredictable. So they kind of have to prepare for anything when it comes to Ahsoka. So Thrawn ends up ordering the fighters to fall back and have them just kind of stand by. And this was another like very key moment in this episode, I believe, because this is very telling of Thrawn's strategy, his knowledge, just being kind of a battle genius and a tactical genius. Just very smart dude. And he says, there's no need to waste the resources, because after he asked them to fall back, Morgan's like, what are we doing? We have them on the run. Like, we've got them. And he's like, no need to waste the resources. And he says that Jedi are good at hiding. They've been doing it for a long time. And he mentions that Ahsoka will be unpredictable, like I mentioned. And essentially he wants to let Ahsoka come to them, and they need to be sure that they're ready. So instead of pursuing her, kind of back up, regroup, get in prepare mode for anything. And then once she does, spring the trap or whatnot, they want to be one step ahead of her. So very cool. I thought that was a great scene. So then we cut to Ahsoka and Huyang flying to hide behind some of the debris, and they end up powering down their ship just again to get off all the other radar from the starfighters. And because of all this, they are realizing that Thrawn was prepared for them. So all this is just kind of indication that Thrawn's here. They were ready, and hence the fighters and hence the mines and everything. Like those were Imperial. That was an Imperial minefield. So who else, would be using Imperial equipment in this long, far away galaxy? Well, it's got to be Thrawn, because we know Thrawn, due to Ezra, got flown off into hyperspace by the Purgil. So they're connecting the dots here. So Huyang runs a scan to see if they can locate Lady Ren, because Balin and Shin and Morgan captured her, and their thought was they're going to bring her with them in the aid to finding Thrawn. So because they found Thrawn, or the remnants of Thrawn, Lady Ren's probably nearby. So then we cut to Ezra and Sabine with those turtle creatures. I haven't caught what their name was. I turned the second time watching through, I did end up turning on the captions, but halfway through, and I didn't catch if it called out what creatures those are. So if you know what the name of those creatures are, call it out. Let me know, because I just keep referring to them in my notes here as turtle creatures. So bear with me. Sabine tells Ezra that the Empire was defeated, and he's defeated at the Battle of Endar. They call out that battle, and she's essentially like catching him up on what happened, who's who now, and what he's missing. Ezra asked how she found him, and this goes back to Dustin's comment. She says it's complicated and still doesn't want to discuss it. So that's infuriating Dustin. He's like, okay, like this needs to be discussed. And even Ezra states it's kind of important, because getting home is important in this situation. That's what he wants to do. That's why Sabine is likely here. But Sabine changes the subject and goes to talking about Ahsoka taking her on as an apprentice. And he asks, is she coming? And she sighs, and Ezra's like, it's complicated. And she's like, yep, it's complicated too. So not really revealing too much to Ezra at this point. Hopefully we'll get there. I mean, that's got to be the overall objective, right? So then we cut to Balin and Shin right up with the bandit gang, and they kind of see Ezra, Sabine, and the creatures in the pods in the distance. And then we cut to 3 Night Sisters walking into Thrawn's quarters. Thrawn welcomes them and asks them to use their magic to locate Ahsoka with the debris field, or within the debris field. They comply, and they use their like triangular magic ball thing. So there's these 3 balls, and they like form a triangle, and it's like honing in on coordinates or something like that. And they've been using these. They used it to imprison Sabine. It's like a force field too. So it's almost like a lasso that would be like a lightsaber. So like think of Wonder Woman's lasso type things. That's what I'm going to leave it at for now. All right, so we cut to Huyang stating he can't locate Sabine due to them either being jammed or just too much debris. And Ahsoka states that there's another way to locate her. She's a force wielder, so she probably has other means. And sure enough, she intends to use the force to locate her. And Huyang asks Ahsoka if she thinks that their bond is strong enough, meaning Ahsoka's bond with Sabine, to be able to use the force to locate her. She doesn't respond. You just see her calling out through the force to Sabine. And then you kind of hear the name call like in the background, and you can tell that Sabine senses something because we go from Ahsoka and then we cut to Sabine with Ezra, and it kind of the setting of the scene is you've got Ezra's voice kind of gets muffled out, and you can tell that Sabine is hearing something, or not hearing, but sensing something, and you hear Ahsoka calling Sabine's name out in the background. And then cut back to Ahsoka, and she's calling back out again. Ezra asks Sabine if she's okay. Ahsoka then says, "I see her." And then we cut to the Night Sisters, and I'm assuming because Ahsoka is using the Force to kind of connect with Sabine, and the Night Sisters are using this Force kind of radar thing, they kind of trapped Ahsoka. And once Ahsoka used the Force to locate it, then the Night Sisters were able to tune into that, and they were able to get the coordinates of Ahsoka, and they relay that to Thrawn, meaning the Night Sisters relay that information over to Thrawn, and then Thrawn asks his captain to fire upon those coordinates. And before you see anything like that, Ezra again asks to Sabine what happened, but Sabine says she's not sure, just a feeling. So a lot going on there. It seemed a little coincidental to me. I think this was kind of one. There were probably two things that kind of made me like, and I think this was one of them. Just the timing of it is very coincidental. So you're telling me that the moment that Ahsoka was trying to tune in to Sabine is the same exact moment from everything that's been going on that these Night Sisters were just tuning in to the debris field. So I guess luck of the draw. They just timed it right. But all right, I can get past that. Okay, let's see, where was it? All right, so then we cut to Ahsoka and Huyang being fired upon. So the Star Destroyer, or no, not the Star, the Ring. I think it was the Ring that was actually doing the firing. Yeah, it was firing upon the coordinates received where Ahsoka was in the debris field. They're like, we got to get out of here. So they flee in their starship while they continue to get fired upon. Thrawn says, well done, that they've flushed her out. So that was his main objective, going back to what we were talking before. He wants her to make the move, and that they will be prepared, have her come to them. And then he says that she will fly to the aid of Sabine and ask for the mercenaries to engage on Ezra and Sabine. So Baylan and Shin then kind of show themselves in the distance to Ezra and Sabine, as they're like looking out on the field of the group. Ezra notices it. I think Sabine notices it, and they're like, all right, we got to get moving. This isn't good. And then I think we cut to probably my favorite moment of this, or one of my favorite moments, probably one of the most important moments of this. Very fascinating. This makes me that much more interested to see what happens with Baylan and Shin. I think that's probably been one of the most fascinating things about this show so far, is what the intentions of these two are, specifically Baylan. And this was one of those subtle, like very key moments that will mean a lot in the future. So Baylan and Shin are on their mounts, and they're kind of sitting there overlooking the field where Ezra and Sabine are. And Baylan speaks to Shin, says, contact Thrawn, kill Sabine Wren and Ezra Bridger, and take your place in the coming Empire. So right away, you're like, wait a minute, where are you in that? Like, you're saying go do all this stuff and take your place in the Empire, but you're saying that like you're not going to be involved in this. What's your objective here? And Shin even asks, "You won't help?" And then Balin responds, "Your ambition drives you in one direction. My path lies in another." So obviously two different intentions in this whole situation. Balin senses it. Balin's got his objective, and Shin wants to make or take her place in this upcoming empire. Balin clearly doesn't want anything to do with that in the long run. So Shin calls it into Thrawn. So she mentions they've located Ezra and Sabine, and they send in the coordinates. And then Balin says to Shin, "One parting lesson, Shin. Impatience in victory will guarantee defeat." And that's that line that Dustin and I were talking about in our text messages. And that is such a great line. I mean, if anything, Balin is this like one-liner dude. Like he spits out these amazing one-liners. It's like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn level one-liners. Just anything that comes out of his mouth is really fascinating. Sometimes it's just some simple as one word, like one word responses too. Even if it's one word, it's just amazing. And he's very deliberate, one on his delivery and two on his words. So just continue to pay attention to what and how he says what he says, because it will be important. And Thrawn is very much like that too. I won't say he's as deliberate with his words, but he's just very, I think his formality makes it seem more deliberate. But his formality is just representative of his military genius. So like whatever those two say is just like music to my ears. It's fantastic. And I'm always paying attention when they're talking. So then Shin and the bandits ride on to engage Ezra and Sabine. So Balin's like, "All right, you go do you." And he just kind of stays afar. And then Thrawn orders 2 gunships to aid the mercenaries and bandits. And then you see the stormtroopers, they kind of running through. I think it was on the Star Destroyer, and they jump on 2 gunships and fly towards the surface of the planet. The bandits approach Ezra and Sabine, and they all start fighting. The turtles start shielding themselves, and they have very primitive means of fighting. One's got a slingshot, and they're like throwing rocks at the bandits. Not very effective, to say the least. So this is they're continuing to move forward as this kind of fighting is taking place. Ezra states that they're a peaceful people, so they don't really fight, because Sabine's like, "What's going on here? Do we even have a chance here?" But Sabine is firing upon them. She's kind of doing, it's like a wagon chase almost. Like Sabine's doing the firing, pew pew pew, with her pistols, and Ezra's kind of doing the driving. He's navigating with this pod, and they are able to take out a few of the bandits, but then one of the turtle pods kind of gets disabled, and Ezra's like, we can't leave him behind. So Jedi always doing the right thing. No man, no turtle dude left behind. So he's like, we're gonna circle up the pods, and kind of keeping to that wagon theme or Western theme. They kind of do the circling of the wagons, very reminiscent of that. So it's more of a defensive stance, because in Westerns, when like not cowboys, but migrants, like think of like the Oregon Trail, settlers moving out west, if they were attacked upon by the locals, they would circle the wagons, because they could hide and use the wagons as a sort of fortification to defend themselves while being able to fire it out. It does help in defense, but it also kind of pigeonholes you into a certain position. So you better be able to fight them off. If you don't, then there's really no escape for you. But But yeah, that's what they do. They circle the pods. They circle the turtle pods. And then we cut to Ahsoka and Hu Yang flying in. They're being pursued by fighters. Baylan continues to look on, watching the events unfold. Shin and the head bandit approach Ezra and Sabine, and Ezra is like ordering all the turtle creatures to lock themselves up into their pods. Like they've got these like shields that come up and they like barricade themselves in it. And Ezra and Sabine essentially were like, we'll handle this situation. Then we cut to Ahsoka telling Hu Yang that she needs to get to Sabine and Ezra. And it's kind of funny because I think Hu Yang is like, well, we can't land this ship right now. And Ahsoka's like, well, I don't plan on landing the ship. And Hu Yang's like, oh, no, not this again. So essentially, he's catching up that she's going to jump out of the ship. So he's got to like fly low enough. She'll give a countdown and she'll let him know when she's jumping out. And Hu Yang warns against it, but she's like, I'm doing it anyways. I think he even said like Jedi protocol doesn't agree with this. I think he's brought that up before, and Ahsoka shot him down pretty well, being like, well, I don't consider myself a Jedi anymore. So why do I have to follow Jedi protocol? Anyways, they end up doing it. She jumps out and she lands safely. And as soon as she lands, she encounters Baylan. So Baylan just happens to be right there. And this was another pretty awesome exchange, this time between Baylan and Ahsoka. So Baylan was like, well, now, this is a surprise. Didn't expect to see you again. And then Ahsoka's like, disappointed? And he said sharply, no. However, I can't allow you to interfere. And Ahsoka says, I don't have time for this. He says, that I know. And then they ignite their sabers and they engage. So when this was happening, I'm trying to recall when I was first watching this, if I felt that Baylan found it necessary to fight her. I don't think he necessarily feels like he has to kill her. I think he just can't let her interfere, like he said. He feels that she can't defeat him. And maybe she can, maybe she can't. I don't know. Ahsoka clearly is like, well, I don't need to. I just need to get past you so I can get to the aid of Ezra and Sabine, which she ends up doing. And Baylan doesn't pursue her. So clearly it's not urgent for him to go after and kill her. He just wanted to kind of slow her down, I guess. So they have that exchange. They ignite their sabers and they start fighting. And I have been loving the lightsaber duels in this show. It's so fantastic. The visuals, everything. I just saw my wife is peeking in right now, giving me a look like, are you recording right now? Can I come in? So yeah, the lightsaber duels have been just fantastic in all this. And we get to be treated to another one here. So they are fighting. And then we cut to Ezra and Sabine. And they're trying to formulate a plan to fight off all these bandits. Sabine tells Ezra to take the lightsaber. But Ezra's like, no. You use the lightsaber. You've been training with it. You should be the one using it now. They go back and forth like, no, you take it, you take it, you take it. The outcome, Sabine continues to have the saber, and Ezra's like, I will use the Force. And then they start engaging the bandits. So Ezra's like doing Force push and doing hand-to-hand combat and using the Force. And Sabine is using the lightsaber and her pistols. But then Shin sneaks up on Ezra and almost gets him. She actually cuts off a piece of his hair. And I think I did see a little bit of Rebels Ezra in this. Because Rebels Ezra is he likes to make light of the situation. It's kind of sarcastic, witty, funny. And he kind of gives this little look at her and it's like, you almost had me, but you cut off my hair. And so he starts engaging her. Sabine kills the lead bandit guy, the one with the big hat helmet thing. And then she comes to the aid of Ezra fighting Shin. As soon as Sabine joins, Ezra's like, this doesn't look good for you, speaking to Shin. Like, okay, it's 2 against 1 now. And of course, as soon as that's said, they look off into the distance and they see these ships approaching, the ones that have the stormtroopers aboard. And Sabine's like, oh crap, Ezra, take her now. This is the time. And he tries to, but Shin parries it and kind of gets away a little bit. And then we cut to Baylan fighting Ahsoka. Baylan blocks a strike from her and tells her, you can't defeat me. And then this is where Ahsoka's like, perhaps I don't have to. And then after she says that, you see Hu Yang fly the ship down closer to the surface and kind of fires upon Baylan. Doesn't hit it. Like he avoids all the attack, but it allows Ahsoka to flee to go aid Ezra and Sabine. And then Baylan just kind of stands there and watches as she leaves again. So he just had to, stall her, I guess, try to not let her interfere, but she did get away. So then the stormtroopers arrive and they start forming a perimeter to engage Ezra and Sabine. Thrawn is deploying tactics from afar to the group, to Shin and the bandit and the stormtroopers. But this is where he notices that Baylan isn't there with them. He's like, oh, where's Baylan? And the stormtroopers start positioning themselves around the area. Shin tells them to fire upon Ezra and Sabine. And then at that moment, Ahsoka arrives and jumps in and starts fighting Shin. Hu Yang sees from the ship, like, oh, well, they're all back together again. And I liked his line. He says, I hope I survived long enough to see the outcome. So kind of providing that comic relief. And then the fighting on the ground continues. Ezra keeps using the Force, and he takes a blaster from one of the stormtroopers and uses that as well. Sabine is using her blasters and kind of defending with her armor. And it's really cool because obviously Beskar, because the lightsaber will hit and she's able to deflect it. And Ahsoka's using her lightsaber. So we're kind of seeing these characters fight like they did of old, kind of getting back to their old groove from the Rebels. And then we cut to Thrawn, and this was another one of my favorite moments. Again, a Thrawn exchange. This guy is just so great. So he's like, what a rare sight, almost like the Jedi of old. Recall the gunships, call off the aerial pursuit. These are unfortunate but acceptable losses, given the absence of Lord Baylan. In the grand scheme of things, one might even call this first match with Tano a success. So, again, the objective of Thrawn is not to kill them. It's not to destroy them. His overall objective is just to get back to where he came from, in the galaxy we're all familiar with. Get back to the Empire and kind of bring about this resurgence of the Empire, or whatever idea he has in the back of his head. And so in a way, he sees this as a victory because this distraction can allow them to flee. And whatever happens to the mercenaries, Baylan and Shin, to Ezra, Ahsoka, Sabine, it's moot. It doesn't matter because in his mind, they're stuck here. How the heck are they going to get back? If they live or die, so be it. Their objective is to get back home. So Morgan is there with them, and she says, I see only our enemies reunited. And then Thrawn responds, let me show you what I see. With our enemy distracted, our cargo transfer is now almost complete, which means we shall soon leave this forsaken place. Ahsoka Tano has lost the one thing she could not afford to lose today: time. Time is very much on our side now, and I shall keep it that way. Military genius. Again, this was a means to an end. This was a distraction. It was going back to what he was talking about with Ahsoka. We just need to let her make the first move. We need her to go to the aid of the others, because if she goes to them, that gives us the time we need to escape. Military genius, or just a genius, not even military, just a genius. And he was right. It's exactly what happened. And it's bought him the time that they need, because those cargo transfers are now almost complete. They'll probably go hook up with that hyperspace thing and get out of there. And the Purrgil are gone. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens, because obviously they're going to, well, maybe obviously isn't the right word. I'm trying to think. Because we don't know if Ahsoka comes back. We don't know if Sabine or Ezra comes back. So maybe it's not obviously. So we have yet to know what happens in this situation, I guess. So anxious to find out. So after this exchange, we cut to the stormtroopers being called back. Only Shin remains amongst Ezra, Sabine, Ahsoka, and the turtle people. Ahsoka kind of reaches out a hand, and well, she doesn't do it, but through words, and she tells Shin to surrender her weapon and that she can help her. But Shin does not accept the proposal. She flees on her dog mount. So then we're left with Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra, and they kind of rejoice and hug in the reunion of one another. Ahsoka is really excited to see Ezra because she hasn't seen him in a long time. She kind of laughs in disbelief, but sure enough, he's there. And her and Sabine are happy that they found one another. And then Huyang lands the ship nearby. The turtle creatures start coming out of their pods, and they're like, what's going on here? Are we okay? And Ezra's like, all right, everything's fine. Everything's fine. These are all friends. We're all safe now. And then Ezra tells Ahsoka and Sabine that he has a feeling, and that feeling is that he might be going home after all. And then it cuts to the credits. So will they find their way home after all? Who knows? That is definitely to be determined. So many questions still up in the air. Again, this is part 7 of 8 episodes that will release for season 1. I have to believe that there'll be a second season that will come out, maybe more, especially with the success of this first one. But still fascinated to see what Balin's objective is, because obviously something else is calling him. He even literally says something is calling to him. But what does he want? He wanted to, it seems like he wanted to find Thrawn. Like that was part of it, but maybe there's more to it. Maybe it has to do with, I don't think it has anything to do with Ezra, or obviously not Ahsoka. It might have to do with the world between worlds, because I think Thrawn's Star Destroyer has something to do with that. Like there's some connection there. So maybe that's part of what he wants, or he wants to start a whole new order, kind of start from scratch on this new galaxy, gain followers and be a leader in that. But clearly he sees that Shin's path is something different. So curious to see what happens with her. Obviously want to find out, do Ezra, Sabine, and Ahsoka get out of here, or are they stuck? So we'll have to wait and see. What do you think? How do you think this show will play on? What kind of answers do you think we'll get from part 8? I'm sure there will be many more questions left open. I wonder if we'll get any big reveal in this final one. As things have been going, you usually do. I'm sure there'll be a huge cliffhanger. I'm expecting a huge cliffhanger at the end of this. And then it's going to make us sit on this for a long time. At least from what I heard, I think they might have reached an agreement with the writer's strike, so maybe they can get working on it so we can get the season as soon as possible, season 2. But that is all yet to be seen, but definitely looking forward to it. So, and with that, that wraps up our review of part 7, which is titled Dreams and Madness. Again, give us your thoughts, opinions. Send it to us on our social media handles. You can find us at Twitter at DetBlockAA23pod, on Instagram, detention_block_AA_23, and then our Facebook group and YouTube channels, Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. Loving the show, even though this part 7 might not have had as big of impact as the others. That doesn't mean it's any less important. If anything, the contrary, so many important things happen in this. And it's only making me excited to see what else comes out. Another thing I wanted to talk about really quickly, and I won't spend too much time on this, maybe for our next episode, or when Dustin or Zach or Greg is able to join us again and kind of talk with them about it. But I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, and I think it's really fascinating all the connections that this show has had with Lord of the Rings, kind of how it mirrors that story in many ways. And if I heard right, the project name for the show, so with movies or shows, they have these certain project names to kind of hide the identity of what it is. And if the information I got was correct, the name that they used for this was Stormcrow. And if, for all you Lord of the Rings fans out there, that's Gandalf's last name. It's in the Two Towers. I think it was the Two Towers, or was it the Return of the King? Where, yeah, it was Two Towers, where the writer of Rohan King is kind of possessed by the dark magic of the little aide guy and the Dark Lord. He calls out when Gandalf arrives, like, "What do you have to say, Gandalf Stormcrow?" So I think that was purposeful, that this project's name was Stormcrow. And Ahsoka definitely kind of mirrors that progression of Gandalf, going from Gandalf the Gray to Gandalf the White. Gandalf was gray, and then fought that Balrog, and they fell to the depths. And when he came back, he was Gandalf the White. Similar thing here. You have Ahsoka, who is in a gray like cloak when the show starts, and then she fights Balin and is defeated and kind of falls into the water, and this kind of world between worlds scene or vision. And then after that, she's now wearing a white cloak, mirroring that Gandalf the Gray to Gandalf the White. So it's kind of this like transition period that she learned something important there. And then you have the Eye of Sauron, and then you've got the Eye of Zion. Is that the name of that hyperspace jumper? No. That's the map. The Eye of Zion. That's the map that Morgan uses, the Night Sister dark magic, to get the coordinates of the galaxy and everything. So there's all these connecting elements to Lord of the Rings, and even the mounts that Balin and Shin and these bandits are riding, they're kind of reminiscent of the wogs from Lord of the Rings that the orcs ride into battle. So very cool. Again, I can get into this more in another episode, but I just wanted to call that out. And if you're take note of that, and if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, pay attention and see if you can find any other connecting dots there. So all right, well, I will wrap this up. Thanks for joining me today. Hope you have a great rest of your day, rest of your week. Again, shout out to Dustin and his wife and family. Congratulations on your new baby daughter. Super exciting. Can't wait to meet her. And yeah, let me know if there's any way I can help you out. Bring food, bring it dinner or something. I just went through having a kid, so now I know what it's like and how hard it is to accomplish some of the little things. And now you have a second child, so I'm sure it's very challenging. If you need help and you're listening to this, Dustin, let me know. I'm there for you, bud. And yeah, and shout out to my brew crew and Packers. Go Pack Go. Games within less than 24 hours against the Detroit Lions. So excited to see that. I'll have softball at the same time, so I got to figure out how I can watch the game and at the same time as playing softball. But that's neither here nor there. Again, thanks for joining us. I gave you the social media handles. I'll give it again. Twitter at DetBlockAA23pod, Instagram detention_block_AA_23, and then our Facebook group, YouTube channel, Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. Bring us your likes, follows, downloads, subscriptions, reviews, ratings, all of the above. Any little thing that you can do, we greatly appreciate it. It goes a long way, especially those reviews in getting our name out there amongst the hundreds and hundreds of Star Wars podcasts out there. So we greatly appreciate it, as we love bringing all this content to you. So reach out to us. Let us know your thoughts, opinions, even to say hi, what have you. And with that, till next time, everyone. And as